Hi, I'm Jeff Barkman and I talk about things. Thank you so much for watching this video. There's two ways that you could help me grow my audience. One would be to hit the like button. You're welcome to wait until the end of the video before you hit the like button to see if you like it or not. But when you hit the like button, it plays the algorithm of the site in my favor and puts my video in front of people who haven't met me yet. The other way that you can help me grow my audience is by hitting the share button to intentionally put my video in front of people who haven't met me yet. If you do either or both of those things, I'll be very appreciative. So today I'm talking about a dynamic that I've seen in culture on the internet, and that is the demand to be sensitive and the demand to not. I feel like in larger forums, we are supposed to operate in a way where we magically know how not to offend anybody, while simultaneously we magically must not be offended by anybody. And it kind of makes me think of this concept in marketing where the ratio of how relevant your message is to people is directly proportionate to how many people you're talking to. What I mean by that is that if you're doing an ad campaign to say 10,000 people, you're going to phrase things differently. You're going to phrase things in sort of a more accessible way than you would if you were targeting only 100 people. If that makes sense. If you're targeting 100 people, you can say things that are more personal to them, whereas if you're targeting 10,000 people, it has to be less personal and less pointed. And there's this dynamic when you're creating these ads where if you're trying to be relevant to everybody, you eventually water it down so much that you're completely irrelevant to anybody. And I think that that's a dynamic that most people are not familiar with. And I'm basing that on the comments threads. And I'm not even talking about like controversial articles. Like I'm talking about like the comments thread, even like on like an article about the PlayStation 5 coming out. The comments are so divided and so offended and so like, I don't know, entitled maybe. But it's just madness. So I want to say this, sensitivity to the needs of others is a positive thing. Sensitivity to the needs of others is crucial. And so like please don't hear me wrong. Don't hear that I'm trying to advocate that we tolerate racism. That's not what I'm saying in the slightest. Racism is wrong always. What I am trying to say is that being unable to anticipate the needs of every other human being on the internet is the normal human state. It's the normal human condition. But people grow. That's the thing. I think that kind of rubs me the wrong way with this whole cancel culture thing. You know, you've seen people in Hollywood losing jobs over stuff that they said 10 years ago, deleted, apologized for, grew as individuals for 10 years, excuse me, changed, and they're losing jobs for the person that they were 10 years ago. And I feel like, you know, I hate to say as Christians, but I have to, because as Christians, we believe in redemption. In fact, the mission of the cross is in complete opposition to the mission of like cutting people out and rejecting them for who they used to be. And I think that the thing that I'd like to address is that the worldview that believes that some stranger's internet opinion is allowed to violate me, I think is just giving too much authority to strangers. What do I mean by authority? I have a very close friend, and we had this dynamic at play in our relationship where he would hurt my feelings, and I would be hurt and tell him. And his response to me for the longest time was, "You need to be less sensitive." And it always bothered me even more. Like it got even more under my skin and hurt even more. Like it just exacerbated the whole situation. And then one day I realized why. It was because when he told me to be less sensitive, he was advocating for less authority in my heart. He was advocating, he was saying, you shouldn't allow my voice to have influence in your life. You shouldn't allow my voice to have influence in your heart. And I was like, well, no, I want your voice to have influence in my heart because I want us to be close. And every time you tell me that I should decrease the influence of your voice, you're telling me that we shouldn't be as close as we are. And I shouldn't allow your voice the influence and the authority that it has in my life. And after we had that conversation, our friendship grew actually a lot closer because it was highlighting this defense mechanism, I guess. And I see that all over the internet too. People telling other people to like not be offended by things or whatever. And I think like the thing that should produce like authority in our hearts is relational equity. Not the content of what someone's saying, relational equity. Am I saying that we shouldn't listen to like preachers that we like? Well, no, I think that, you know, as I listen to preachers, probably I'm not going to have the most authority. They're not going to have the most authority in my heart the first time I listen to them preach. But if they're awesome, like 50 times in a row, on that 51st time, they're going to have more authority in my life than on the first time. And so I guess I'm just counseling us all on the internet to like take a step back, realize that these people are strangers, and that their opinion really doesn't matter in my life. Relational equity should be the thing that produces authority in our hearts. And authority should not be given to any voice that lacks relational equity. And I agree. There are many people saying extravagantly offensive things on the internet. But the way that I don't let it into my heart is I don't give them authority in my heart because they have no relational equity. They don't know who I am. If I don't know you, you can comment on this video and say something horribly mean to me. And honestly, I don't think it'll get to me unless you make fun of my mustache. Then I'll be hurt. Yeah, criticism outside of context or relationship is irrelevant. I've had people yell things at me from cars. And I've never really like taken it to heart. And I think that it's just because I'm like, the context in which they yelled that thing is their ignorance, and possibly partially due to like my geography, like where I am right now. There may be more people who are willing to yell things at me from cars. Not in Portland, typically, but like I've been places where people are more prone to yell things at me, which were unkind. But yeah, I just think like, you know, the answer to cancel culture is not to cancel culture. The answer to cancel culture is to empower real human connection. I mean, ultimately, cancel culture is just cynicism. And if you've been on this journey with me in my content creation for any time, you know that I talk about cynicism and how the key to cynicism is innocence. And the thing is innocence believes in redemption. And so there's no situation in which we can be like, just cancel that person. Just delete them, you know. There's no situation like that, because that's not what the Lord's doing. That's not the mission of the cross. That's not the narrative that we find ourselves in. That's not the narrative that happened in my life. That's not the narrative that's happening in your life. It's all actually a redemption story. And if we can start to look at every single random, you know, person in the comment section who doesn't have a profile picture, if we can look at those people as, you know, inside of their redemption story, I think it's going to go a long way for our own mental health and our own happiness. So thank you so much for watching this video. It took me like 14 takes. But thanks for watching. I really appreciate you. If you want to go ahead and hit like, share, leave me a comment, and I'll respond to your comment if it's kind. Bless you.